The movie opens with the main character, Jake Sully, narrating his simple and peaceful life with his family in Pandora as the chief. He mentions that he and his wife Neytiri have a total of 5 children, 2 sons Neteyam and Loak, a daughter Tuck, their adopted daughter Kiri, and a human boy named Spider. Jake goes on to clarify that Kiri is the daughter of his dear friend Grace, who died while helping the Navi people fight against humans. As for Spider, he was left behind when all the humans returned to Earth after losing their battle. Jack says that the children get along like a family, despite their different skin tones and sizes. Neytiri dislikes Spider, however, because he is the offspring of the villainous Colonel Miles Quaritch, who nearly exterminated the Navis. It was discovered that Spider couldn't be brought back to Earth because of his size, so he was left behind on Pandora. In contrast, Kiri feels a deep bond with Spider and has grown quite fond of him. After spending his entire life among the Navi, the human boy has come to believe that he is actually one of them. Neytiri and Jack are having a conversation late one night when they spot a fleet of bright spaceships in the sky. The spaceships appear out of nowhere and immediately begin wreaking havoc. Torching the Omaticaya habitat with flames causes widespread destruction and the deaths of many animals. Soldiers equipped with robotic artillery emerge from the spaceships to destroy the remaining structures. From a distance, Neytiri and Jake are shocked to see an RDA spaceship carrying humans who are headed to Pandora to colonize the planet and construct a new MOS. Next, we cut to one of Earth's labs, where the Colonel's exact clone, a Navi, has been created by humans. The information and recollections that were gathered from him before he passed have been fed into him. This means the clone of the Colonel has perfect knowledge of everything except the means and motive of his murder. The scientists have not only created a clone of the Colonel, but also of the other soldiers who participated in the first attack on Pandora. Since this is the case, the Colonel and his troops are committed to eliminating the Omaticaya, and Jake in particular. In the meantime, Jake is marching an army of Navi toward the RDA train supply lines in an effort to ward off the invaders. He sneaks inside and gets away with food and ammunition. Unfortunately, Loak, one of his sons, disobeys orders and is injured during the operation. Jake tells him to be disciplined from now on. However, the Colonel runs into his superior, General Ardmore, who fills him in on the Navi's flying companions, the Scounds. Currently, they are attempting to impede our progress by attacking our helicopters. When the Quaritch heard this, they devised a cunning plan to invade the forest where the 2 factions had previously fought in order to learn more about them. He and his friends will soon be entering the forest. The only problem is that Jake's kids are out there too. Soon after, the Colonel investigates the site of their previous battle and finds his robotic suit, still containing his remains. Loak notices everything going on and quickly gets in touch with his father through a voice transmitter he wears around his neck. After hearing this, Jake advises Loak to avoid them and sneak out of the building. He and his wife Neytiri take off for the woods to make sure their kids are okay. Sadly, the humans catch Loak and his siblings when they try to escape. The Colonel examines their fingers and discovers that they belong to the family of his sworn enemy. There was just enough time for Neytiri and Jake to arrive and launch an attack on the soldiers. They save most of the kids, but Spider stays behind. Sadly, the boy is kidnapped by the bad humans. When the Colonel asks Spider his name later on, he immediately recognizes his son's status. When Jake and his wife return to Omaticaya, he approaches her and suggests they leave the area for the eastern coast. He is concerned that Spider will tell the Colonel and his people where they are hiding. Jake also warns Neytiri that the humans will continue attacking the tribe until he is present, since he was the one who killed Colonel Quaritch. Neytiri doesn't agree with her husband's assessment, but she also doesn't want to leave their stunning home. As a result, she has no choice but to move to his new country. However, General Ardmore is cruel, placing Spider in a machine that spins constantly. He tries to coax the boy into telling him something crucial, but the boy isn't having any of it. Spider refuses to abandon his unwavering allegiance to his Navi parents. Apparently shocked by his son's condition, the Colonel immediately shuts off the spinning machine. He then goes up to the General and informs her that he plans to deal with Spider in his own way. A little while later, he and the boy meet in private, and he tries to reassure the youngster that he's not a bad person. He tells him he's here to bring him back to Earth. Seeing this makes Spider feel good, and he agrees to give him the data he requested. The next scene shows Jake and his family taking to the air in scounds to escape their native land. After several days in the air, they reach the land of Omaticaya, home to yet another Navi people. The local Navis population is surprisingly pale and aquatic. As soon as they catch sight of Jake and his crew, they begin making fun of their appearance. Tonawari, the tribal chief, and his wife are on their way there right now. Skeptical of Jake and his family, he says they lack the aquatic skills necessary for survival. Jake, however, insists that his loved ones will quickly adjust to their new surroundings in order to save them. In the next paragraph, he says that he is being pursued by humans. After hearing this, Tonawari gives in and lets them stay for a while. In addition, he has his kids show Jake's kids the ropes of swimming and using their unique creatures to get around underwater. After hearing this, Tonawari's kids take their new pals to the beach to introduce them to the water and begin teaching them the ropes. Look! Ever the prankster loses control while attempting to communicate with a marine creature and ends up in the water. The moment they see him, Tonawari's kids become hysterical. All the while, Kiri, the girl, can be seen submerged in the water. She has adapted surprisingly well to her new environment, and she even has some degree of influence over the marine life. Aonong, Tonawari's son, and his friends approach Kiri the next day while she is meditating underwater and begin making fun of her, calling her a freak. This prompts Loke to show up and punch Aonang. The next time Jake hears about it, he becomes enraged and tells his son, who is the clan leader's son, to apologize to Aonang. Finally agreeing and apologizing, Loak does so with some reluctance. Even though Aonang seems to have forgiven him in front of others, his feelings toward him remain mixed. To this end, he plans to take Losak swimming at a specific time and place. Loke has no idea that there are lethal marine predators nearby. Eventually, while Loak is out fishing, he is quickly approached by a large predator. Loak, frightened and alone, looks around for assistance. At that moment, however, a gigantic monster named Payakan appears to help. It uses its broad head to quickly and efficiently dispatch the predator. Payakan reveals himself to be a tulkun, a species known for its peace and intelligence. The Neteyam see the ocean's many thousands of tulkuns as ancestors. The power and size of Payakan surpass all others. Meanwhile, Payakan comes to Loak's aid and brings him to the surface. The latter aids the creature by removing the harpoons that had been hurting it. As a result, the two develop a sweet friendship. When Loak finally makes it to shore, Tonawari summons him. The stern leader has learned of his son's misdeeds and now demands an explanation and an apology from Aonang. Selflessly, Loke admits his guilt and says Aonang had nothing to do with his action. After reading this, Aonang realizes the new Nabis aren't so bad. Loak eventually finds his brother and friends and tells them about how Payakan saved his life. The shocking reality is that nobody believes him. Instead, they reveal that the other tokens have given up on Payakan because it is a killer. However, Spider educates the Colonel on Navi customs and traditions before accompanying him on a selection trip to Hallelujah Mountain. The Colonel has some trouble at first, but he quickly masters the controls and is able to pilot the ship. Not long after that, he too learns of Jake's possible whereabouts and leads his army toward the Neteyam reef. When he got there, he asked some water Navis if they knew Jake. In response to a no from the Navis, the bad humans murder one of them and set fire to their homes. In spite of this, the Navis insist on their original claim. Because they have exhausted all other possibilities, the Colonel gives the order to switch to Plan B. Now he plans to kill off many Tokuns at once in the hopes that Jake will notice. Additionally, there is a benefit to eliminating them. There's a rare fluid in Tokuns' brains that can extend their lives. It would cost millions of dollars to buy just 1 liter of this liquid on Earth. Very quickly, some hunters set out to capture one of the sea monsters. They've knocked out a bunch of their trackers by hitting them with multiple blows. A heartbreaking scene depicts a mother Tulkun being brutally laid to death while her children lay by her side in shock. When the humans finally leave, trackers remain inside the Tulkuns. After learning that their friends are being slaughtered, the Neteyam decide to take up arms and defend themselves. Jake tries to calm them down by pointing out that they should tell the Tulkuns about the trackers first. The only way to stop a future strike from happening is this. Once Loak learns this, he rushes off to tell his best friend Payakan the news. And he brings along Aonong and a few other locals for company. They eventually track down Payakan and get ready to extract the tracker from him. But at that moment, a whale ship carries the Colonel and his hunting party. Loak sees them and immediately contacts his dad to tell him what happened. Just in time, he and his companions extract the tracker from Payakan's corpse. When the Colonel's crew starts looking for them, they dive to the bottom of the ocean and hide. In the meantime, Jake goes up to Tonawari and breaks the news that they have lost their children. That upsets the latter, so he swiftly issues a call to arms. Jake and Neytiri also arm themselves, and the group quickly advances toward the battleground. However, the colonel gives the go ahead for an assault on the Tulkuns and the search for Jake's kids. They look for a while before stumbling upon Kiri and Tuk, whom they promptly net. The more Loak tries to rip the net, the more he gets dragged to the whale ship. The colonel will be there shortly to handcuff them to the ship's rail. He removes the transmitter from Loak's collar and begs Jake to turn himself in so that his kids will be safe. Jake, realizing he has no other choice, accepts his terms. Simultaneously, Payakan discovers his best friend Loak handcuffed to the deck and makes up his mind to free him. He daringly leaps up onto the deck and begins adjusting the ship's massive fin. This will cause the ship to be destroyed and will result in the loss of many soldiers. Jake and Omaticaya take this opportunity to attack the colonel and his troops while they're distracted. They are motivated not only by a desire to protect their children, but also by a desire for vengeance. Meanwhile, Spider destroys the whale ship's controller, sending the vessel careening toward the rocks and filling with water. Then Jake and Neteyam, his eldest son, quickly ascend the deck and set Loak, Tuk, and Kiri free. They then give orders for the kids to go back to where it's safe, but Loak won't comply. His priority now is to help his adopted brother, Spider. After some searching, he and Neteyam eventually locate Spider. The colonel sees them as they are about to exit the ship, and he immediately begins firing. Unfortunately, one of the bullets lands on Neteyam, severely wounding him. Spider and Loak rush him to the shore to their mother, but he dies from blood loss before they can reach her. After witnessing the death of her son, Neytiri bursts into loud sobs and screams. All the while, the villainous colonel uses his scound to capture Kiri and Tuk. The two of his daughters are with him, and he reaches out to Jake later to let him know. When Jake learns this, he manages to put Neytiri at ease enough to convince her to help him protect their daughters. The latter agrees, and then, enraged, she calls her scound, grabs her bow and arrows, and charges the ship. As expected, Jake soon approaches the ship and sets off an explosion that wipes out the colonel's troops. Neytiri shows up as well, and she begins killing the last of the humans with arrows. Meanwhile, Jake locates and rescues Tuk, his young daughter. But the colonel has also arrived. He has a knife to Kiri's throat. Jake, under his threatening pressure, reluctantly drops his weapons. During this time, a vengeful Neytiri has kidnapped Spider and is threatening to kill him. The colonel claims he has no connection to Spider at first, but after Neytiri cuts the boy's chest, he leaves Kiri. Finally, Neytiri and her family are getting ready to leave, but the colonel has already mentioned that he plans to kill Jake once more. In retrospect, Jake sees that killing the colonel is the only way for him to finally be at peace. As a result, he goes back to fighting. Here, the bitter rivals settle their differences the old-fashioned way, with a fist fight. It's a brutal fight, with both parties giving their all. But our hero, Jake, wins out in the end. Through some nimble arm work, he encircles the colonel's neck and renders him unconscious. Jake thinks he is dead and lets him drown. Unfortunately, he experiences similar difficulties breathing and begins to sink. On the other hand, Loak appears to save the day by taking him back to the surface. As time goes on, Payakan carries everyone on his back to the beach. Alternatively, Spider saves the life of his biological father by rescuing him from drowning. To the colonel's dismay, Spider declines to leave with him and instead heads back to his adoptive family. In the final scene, Jake and his family, along with the rest of the Omaticaya tribe, bury Neteyam at sea level, where the lighting tubes care for his body as if it were their own. Jake, at the film's conclusion, reflects on his favorite childhood memories of his older son and comes to the conclusion that he is in heaven with their gods.